bump this out. But anyway. All right. Hopefully people can see this as it's starting. This isn't exactly as I was hoping for it to work out. But anyway, if you're here, welcome to this live stream of the Nova Scotia election results. I'm Eric Rennie of The Writ, and I'm joined by Philippe J. Fournier of 338 Canada and his cat. I'm hoping that my cat will make an appearance. Thanks very much for being a part of this, Philippe. I really appreciate it.
It's good to see you, Eric. I was looking forward to this. I had a very busy day, but I always make time for you to talk elections and such.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, I need to check on something just to make sure that people are seeing it. Here, wait just a second. Okay, close that up. Okay. All right. Are people seeing and hearing us as they should be? The thing is, I can see you both. Okay. The thing is, I was hoping to get this so that we could actually have some of the results on the screen with us, but I couldn't get this to work as I wanted it to. When I did this live stream earlier in the week, it was just me and a webcam, but somehow streaming Zoom decided not to work with the system I was using. So I am going to have to switch back and forth. You're going to be seeing different windows opening up on your screen. If you can hear and see us, just let us know. Working fine, see and hear well. Okay, and everybody here's Philippe too?
1 2 1 2 checking.
All right, okay. This is
338 Canada projection online, and I have zero confidence in this projection, Eric. So
there you go. So you guys will be able to see your own chats on the screen because of how inept I am. So we'll figure this out. I'll figure this out for the future. But anyway, so I wanted to keep an eye on some of the results. So I have the CBC page up right now. And there's no updates yet. I have the Nova Scotia election results page that I'm also going to be keeping an eye on. But until we actually get some results, it'll just be Philippe and I chatting a little bit. So, Philippe, what was your last projection for Nova Scotia? I think you put it up either last night or this morning.
Right, last night after the Main Street poll that showed very different numbers than we had expected. Well, not expected, that's not the right word, but that we had seen earlier in the campaign, as you know. So my final projection, and again, there's a huge uncertainty because when you have a lone poll that's from a credible source such as Main Street, and that's completely different from what we've seen, and we don't have other polls, and a small subsample, a small sample, so the subsamples are even smaller. There's a huge uncertainty. So right now I have 29 Liberal seats on average. 19 PC and 7 for the NDP, which is very close to what the previous election would have been put onto the new map. What do you expect tonight, Eric?
Yeah, I'm expecting. I'm not sure what I'm expecting. I think it'll be pretty close, and that it might actually come down to the last votes that are counted, because the elections officer in Nova Scotia is very worried about people being tired. So if it's midnight and he feels like they still got too many votes to count, they're going to wait until 10 a.m. the next morning.
Really? Okay.
Indeed, yes. So it doesn't seem like there's a huge amount of mail-in ballots. The last I saw was on Saturday. They're up to about 9,000 or 10,000, which is not a small number. It's a lot larger than it was in 2017, but it's still not nearly as much as the 5 million they're expecting for the federal election. So I do think it's close. I did put up my seat ratings today, which I'm not using the same model as you are. It's just more of a kind of a gut check kind of thing. And when I took all of the likely, the lean, and the safe seats for the Liberals, I had them at 25. And then I had them with another, I think it was 8 seats or so where they were they're contesting them, right? So if they win the tosses, they get their majority. If they don't win the tosses, then they get a minority. So I had the New Democrats in the running for 5 seats. They were also contesting another 3. And then the PCs, I think I had them at 16 and in another 8 seats. So that's where I had it.
Do you have a scenario where the PCs actually win the most seats? The extreme scenarios, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I think they could because if you gave the Liberals, so let's say it goes badly for the Liberals, they lose the tosses, and the PCs are doing quite well, and the PCs can win some of those Liberal lean seats, then you could see a kind of scenario where the PCs have just enough seats to eke out plurality. But I guess the question would be after that: would Tim Houston become the next premier, or would the Ian Rankin try to find a solution with the New Democrats and continue governing? It's I think it's a lot more interesting than I was looking at the beginning of the campaign, because that Main Street poll and then the Forum poll, which looked almost identical to the Main Street poll.
Big coincidence there. Yeah, shocking.
But the Main Street poll, no comment. The Main Street poll, it showed that the Liberals were still competitive in Cape Breton. They were still leading there, but not by like these 20-point leads that we'd seen pre-campaign. And so that means that the Liberals could pick up a couple seats in Cape Breton, but maybe they're not that much more competitive in Halifax than they were last time. So a lot of the seats stay the same. Then in the rest of Nova Scotia, they stay the same as well.
Tim Houston had a really good campain, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he did.
He was strong. He was really strong there, and he was calm. All the press availabilities that I saw, he seemed in control. And to be honest, when I really expected the Liberals to win tonight, I'm not sure. They probably will, but when I was really sure of it, I was like, Tim Houston would look good with the federal Conservatives.
Although he did actually try to distance himself a little bit from the Conservatives over the campaign, saying how, we are the progressive Conservatives. We're not the federal Conservatives. So I think he was a bit sensitive for that. And it kind of confused things later on in the campaign when a former NDP minister endorsed the PCs. Atlantic politics are very different from the rest of the country, I think. And there's not always as much separating the three parties as there might be federally or in other provinces.
That is certainly true. I think all four Atlantic provinces, that's the case, right? But also we know that there can be sometimes bad blood between the NDP and the Liberals, and in many provinces. So since the PC and the Liberals are not that distant ideologically, that's not that much of a surprise. I mean, I would be shocked if Bill Blanky would endorse Erin O'Toole. I mean, that would completely be insane, right? But in Nova Scotia, it's not that out of line.
Well, and the PCs were in some ways running a much more centrist campaign than Conservatives would elsewhere, even in say New Brunswick, where the Blaine Higgs's PCs are maybe a little bit closer to the federal Conservatives than the PCs would be in PEI. PCs are about as centrist as you get, I think, and the Nova Scotia ones as well. So, he had a good campaign, it seemed to. And, I actually think we have our first result. Just looking at the CBC page here. Wait, I'm going to switch over.
10 votes. Yes.
10 votes. All right, let me switch over and take a look at it. All right.
Close race alert.
Which one is it? Results to come. Here we go. Halifax, Chebucto. Okay, well, that's Gary Burrell's seat. So I think we can assume that he was going to win that anyway. So... anyway, the first result, Gary Burrell is up by, it seems, 5 votes, and the projection desk here, I think he'll win.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
I am curious to see what the results will be here, because, the Nova Scotia Liberals called an early campaign. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. They didn't call an early campaign, but they had to call a campaign, and they had to call one before next May. But if they would have returned to the legislature, they would have had a minority government, right? Because they had lost some MLAs who had resigned, and so he had to call an election. But this was still an election being called in the midst of the pandemic, concerns about a fourth wave, and he had a big lead in the polls. And now,
timing was there. Yeah, the timing was there. I mean, it was a good time to do it. We all knew the federal election was coming anyway. So why wait until winter? Since it was going well, the COVID pandemic was, it's been under control in Nova Scotia almost the whole time. So I don't think it was that much of an issue as much as, let's say, Newfoundland this past winter, where everything was fine until it wasn't. And then everything went badly for them, unfortunately.
Yeah. But, it's more of a a cautionary tale, though, that when you have a lead in the polls at the beginning of a campaign and maybe voters think you handled COVID pretty well, doesn't necessarily mean, like in all the other provinces we've seen that held elections, that you'll actually hold that lead. That is something that is to watch out for. Sorry, I just got a text that made me laugh. Okay, so we're getting some more results. Let's take a look at what they are.
So I'm just saying that you said, Eric, you said that they might count the votes tomorrow if they finish too late. I mean, I remember New Brunswick, I think at 10 p.m. it was all over. I mean, I remember that it's like, really? That's over already? Okay. All the votes were counted at 10 p.m. So maybe they count slower over there. Maybe they have different protocols because it was also during the pandemic. It was September, right?
I think it has to do with the fact that they have a lot of advanced polls and mail-in ballots, and I think the counting process might start differently for those. And so maybe they're concerned that it's just going to take too long. But I think it's also that, there's the pandemic thing where the counting process is slower because I think they have to be more separate, further apart. And I'm sure if you're counting ballots with a mask on, and maybe wearing gloves. I'm not sure what the protocols are. Maybe it goes a bit more slowly. We'll see. If it is that close tonight, maybe those ballots will still make a difference, right? If they don't count them straight through the night. But if we get to the point where one party's clearly in a position where it's going to win, I'm guessing we'll see a call from some of the networks.
Right.
So let's take another look here as I look through on the CBC website. So the NDP's at leading in 2, the Liberals in 1, and the PCs in 1. Nothing really too shocking just yet. And again, we're just so early. Lunenburg, 5 votes lead for the PCs. In Cape Breton East, a 7-vote lead for the Liberals. We're gonna have to wait a little while. In all, how many votes have been counted? Wait, let me read the popular vote. The popular vote is 31 for the NDP. 28 for the PCs, and 24 for the Liberals. That's votes.
And that's not percentages.
That's not percentages. That's just where they all are. And the Elections Nova Scotia website is not refreshing, so I'm giving up on them. So
let me ask you this, Eric. Do you think that the outcome of this election could have any effect on the 11 federal ridings and the federal race? Do you think there could be some correlation?
I think a little bit. I mean, the Nova Scotians are going to be voting less than 5 weeks apart, right? The federal and the provincial campaigns. And the patterns at the provincial level do match up a little bit with some of the federal races, with the NDP being stronger in Halifax, the Conservatives having more strength in the mainland of Nova Scotia, and in Cape Breton, they came close in a few ridings last time. So if the Liberals have a really underperforming result, I think the federal Liberals should look at it and be a little bit concerned that maybe they can't count on Nova Scotia giving them 10 seats again, especially if we see the NDP do really well in Halifax, because I would think that's where the federal Liberals might be pretty concerned that maybe a seat like Halifax could go to the New Democrats.
Right.
And the Cape Breton numbers too, because Cape Breton, the federal Liberals took kind of a hit in the last election campaign. And they're still... In one case, the seat, Sydney something, isn't it? Sydney, Victoria.
That's right.
Yeah, Jaime Batista had, I think he won it with a very small amount of the vote. There was an independent candidate there who took a big share of it. So there are some other factors at play. But, this is week 1 for the federal campaign. It wouldn't be good if Justin Trudeau has to answer questions about why the Liberals lost in Nova Scotia. If they win, then he has a good news story for tomorrow at least.
Let me check that right now. I have, at the federal level, don't worry, Nova Scotians, we'll go back to your election. It's just that, the Liberals took the lead, 35-34.
There you go.
10 seats for the Liberals last election and 1 West Nova for the Conservatives. Right now, I have all 10 going to the Liberals. There are a few toss-ups in there. But I mean, to get to 170, the Liberals need absolutely everything. I don't know how you see it, but I was told, the last election, the Bloc Québécois, made Justin Trudeau have a minority. I said no, he just lost 5 seats in Quebec. Justin Trudeau did. So basically, the Bloc Québécois took seats from the NDP. but so he needs seats absolutely everywhere. And if he loses even just 2 seats in Nova Scotia, it could be signaling that he's not getting that majority.
Yeah, and we'll get the results out in Nova Scotia first, right?
Right.
Newfoundland and Labrador will
Right.
close, and then half an
First
hour
hour.
later, yeah, we'll get
Right.
Atlantic Canada. And usually, I think it's 2 hours between Atlantic Canada closing and Quebec to Alberta closing, right? So we'll get an indication because back in 2015, when the federal Liberals won that campaign, you knew right from the start that this was going to be a majority for them. And when you saw the results come in 2019, you knew the Conservatives weren't going to win. You just didn't know what that was going to be. So we're starting to get a few more results here. We got six.
The PC is leading.
2 for the Liberals, 2 for the PCs, 2 for the NDP, and the popular vote is still really, again, we're still talking about single digits, 42 votes to 39. It's a tie, 39 for the Liberals and the New Democrats. Okay, we might have to wait a while before we can actually start talking about.
But this is still fun, though. That's the thing. The small sample sizes are fun.
Yeah.
What's
Here, wait.
the
I'm going to take a look at the. I'm going to take a look
Go
at
ahead.
the questions here, or what people are saying.
Right.
About turnout. Yeah, turnout will be something interesting to watch because it's a summer election. It's a COVID election. Will turnout be quite low? And if it does that mean we should expect the same thing for the federal campaign? I would think that this is the closest example, right? Because in the provincial campaigns that took place last year, they were more later in the fall. I think the New Brunswick one, I can't recall exactly when the New Brunswick one. It might have also been
September
a summer.
14th. It was September 14th. Yeah, late summer.
Okay. So, and I don't think turnout was very good in New Brunswick, but yeah, that'll be something interesting to watch. If turnout's under 50, for example, that would be rough. But I mean, for the governing party, if they win the election, then they don't maybe care how many people voted. But yeah, that'll be something to keep an eye on. But because there's all these votes that are going to be counted late into the night, apparently, the full turnout might take a little while before we know what it is.
Right. The turnout in the federal election will be crucial. I mean, probably you saw that piece from Daryl Bricker of Ipsos saying, don't forget that old people will probably vote anyway. When the turnout is low is because a lot of younger people, not just the youngest, but the younger generations do not vote in droves. And so if that's the case, if the federal election is a low turnout election, let's say 61 or 62% turnout instead of the 67s that we saw in the last few cycles, those votes, many of those votes would be Liberal and NDPs. The Conservatives will probably fall in line, and it could be much closer than we expect if that's the case. But again, voting by mail. I mean, I don't know. In the United States, it was such a big thing. Before this election, the U.S. election, the record for amount of votes was 67 million. Obama 2008, and Biden had almost 82 million. So in one election, you blow the record by 15 million because of voting by mail. So it was very popular in the States. Will it be popular in Canada? I'm not too sure, but I think it should be. It should be popular to vote by mail, but oh well.
Well, Elections Canada is making it a lot easier to get your ballot by mail. I think you can apply online, which I think in the past.
Yeah, we should publish the link actually. Can you publish? Yeah, no, yeah. You can apply to vote by mail. Which, if you want to, it makes things much simpler.
I think in previous elections it was a lot more difficult, and or maybe just people never thought about it because voting by mail was just something not many people did.
Exactly.
So yeah, but now this could be a big thing. We did, but like I said, there wasn't that many who took up the option in Nova Scotia. I don't know if the process was more cumbersome than it was in the federal campaign, but the mail-in ballots. Are we going to be talking about mail-in ballots this fall again? Because if they end up getting 5 million, they're not counting them till the day after Election Day federally, and a lot of
they're not really.
No, they're not. They're not. They're going to wait. They're going to start the next morning. So a lot of those votes are probably going to be Liberal, NDP, Green votes, and the Conservative votes probably going to be more of the in-person. So are we going to have the same kind of... Yes, that's exactly it. Are we going to have that again? We'll see.
I had to mute a lot of words on my Facebook page because in January and February, basically it was all, Dominion is coming to Canada and Justin Trudeau is going to rig the election. That was it. It was from conspiracy theories websites, of course, and a bit of crazy, and for sure a few bots in there. But I hope that doesn't become the narrative. Usually we avoid most of that in here, but we shouldn't take things for granted either. So
Yeah. Let's take a look now
Yeah.
where things are. So on the CBC website, it's now 6 seats for the PCs, 5 for the Liberals, 2 for the NDP. But again, the votes at this stage still very low. There's less than 500 votes, or there's maybe 600 votes that have been counted. What's interesting is that the ones that have come in so far, the PCs are down 1 and the NDP is up 1. But we're still looking at some very early results here. And some of these seats, Queens and Argyll, I do believe those are ones that the PCs were expected to win. Lunenburg, that's more of a Liberal seat, but the PCs are ahead there. Colchester, the PCs are ahead. Pick 2, that's also a place where the PCs are quite strong. And right now, the ridings on Cape Breton that have reported, so we got Victoria, the Lakes,
pale red.
Cape
everywhere.
Breton East, and I think that's it. And yeah, that's it. Seems to be right now are both red. And I don't think certainly Cape Breton East was a Conservative seat last time, and Victoria the Lakes was also a Conservative seat. I made myself some notes.
That's right.
So anyway, yeah, we'll have to wait and see because these do not seem to be what we would expect. But it could just be where they were counted.
I both rated them PC safe. So I not that I'm cheering for anybody, but I hope those 2 change colors because that would be embarrassing.
Well, look at it. Like the Liberals have a 20-vote lead in Victoria the Lakes and a 7-vote lead in Cape Breton East.
There you go.
I think they're probably fine, but we'll wait and see. The votes, a little bit more votes are starting to come in now. 400 for the PCs, 260 for the Liberals. But boy, those are tiny, tiny, tiny numbers. So I'm going to check in just on the comments here, see what you guys are talking about. Predictions for the 2022 midterms. Oh, come on. That's 2 elections different from what we're talking about here. The incumbent usually loses, so expect the Democrats to lose some seats, I suppose. I hope you're having a good evening too, Joe.
Yeah.
Let's
Have
see
Ontario first. I mean, Doug Ford going for re-election. François Legault going. A lot of thriller there, right? François Legault going for the re-election. So,
yeah.
What's the over/under on that election? If I tell you 90 seats for the CAQ, would you go over or under?
I'd probably go under. I think it's easier when the campaign's not actually on. So anyway, okay, wait. True. There's this was a good question that could get us talking for a little bit. From James Hickey. Maybe give us a rundown of what each federal leader likely needs to achieve to hold on to their leadership. So I think that's pretty good. So for the Liberals, for Justin Trudeau, apparently if he doesn't get 170 seats, he must resign.
That's what what was the obsession on that? I mean, I get the question once, but the fact that he wasn't answering. What, he's supposed to resign if he wins the election, but not by enough? I mean,
yeah, like it wasn't like too bad of a, like I didn't have problems with the question being asked the first time, but then it was almost as if the other reporters sensed some sort of issue that they should grasp onto, and I didn't get it. Like, if you win the election, you stay on. And Trudeau was, I'm not even sure if he's used the word majority yet. He's not like Stephen Harper, who asked for that strong, stable national majority government in 2011. That's right. So anyway, for Trudeau, I'd say if he wins the most seats, he stays on election night. But if he loses seats from the last election, I would think that he probably starts eyeing the exits. I would think. What do you think it is? What would you think it is for the Liberals?
I think I agree, and we have to remember also. Yes, the threshold for a majority is 170, but let's say hypothetically, Liberals win, I don't know, 167. They would rule as if it's a majority, because then all the parties, including the Greens, would have to get together and to make the government fall. So yeah, the threshold theoretically is 170, but if they get in the high 160, they'll be fine. The question is if he scores lesser score in seats and also in popular vote. That would be a problem for Justin Trudeau, and I could see his own party after maybe 6 months or so saying, you know what, it was a good run. Perhaps we could have a fun leadership and have this Mr. Carney versus Mrs. Freeland face off. But But yeah, so I see Trudeau staying on because what else is he going to do if he wins the election? If he loses, of course, the decision will be made for him. Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
How about O'Toole? Does O'Toole stay if he loses?
I think that there's been so many questions about his leadership, and not like Andy Paul level questions, but there's still been a lot of doubts. I think if he doesn't win more seats, I think the same kind of thing happens to him as happened to Andrew Scheer. Because Andrew Scheer had a decent election result. He won 22 extra seats for the Conservatives. They won the popular vote. And yet, by 2 months later, he's pushed out by his own party. So I think for O'Toole, unless he's so close to the Liberals, like let's say there's only 5 seats separating them or something, that they can't kind of afford to have that leaderless period, I think if he doesn't win the most seats, he's probably done. Maybe not on election night, but it'll be his last election.
Andrew Scheer, the only federal leader to ever have more votes in general election than any Trudeau.
That's a good one.
I checked it out to make sure. Yeah, Trudeau lost in 1979, but he won the popular vote by 5 points. So yeah, it was the first time that a Trudeau in Canada lost the popular vote.
Yeah. And
that's going to be in Trivial Pursuit one day.
Well, we'll see. It could be,
but yeah,
could happen again. We don't know.
Yeah, it could happen again.
He could do it twice.
Although I really feel like, again, the things could change, and we don't know. We don't know whether pictures like the blackface pictures are going to show up again. We don't know what's going to happen in this campaign, of course, and we don't pretend to know it. But it's really hard to see the Conservatives winning the popular vote this time, especially because of O'Toole's personal numbers. When you have a leader that's so unpopular that not only with other party supporters, but your own party supporter, it lowers the ceiling of your party. And so he's going to have that 30% block probably that's going to vote for him anyway. But to go beyond that, to go to 34%, Andrew Scheer needed 69% of the vote in Alberta. And by the way, but I checked also. I wrote a column in Maclean's today. 69% in Alberta is higher than the 4 elections from Stephen Harper. Stephen Harper never had 69% in Alberta. Andrew Scheer did. So will he be able to repeat that? Probably not. The polls indicate that the Conservatives are down a little bit in Alberta. Maybe they're wrong, but we'll have to wait and see. But he's down also in the prairies. He's down in British Columbia. And there's no sign of a surge neither in Quebec or in Ontario. So I don't think he's going to win the popular vote. And if we start with this, then he has almost no chance of winning the most seats unless the Liberals completely disintegrate. But I don't see a Jack Layton phenomenon happening again with Jagmeet Singh. He's doing well in the polls, but yeah, without Quebec, it's not happening. So.
Note that this live stream will be recorded and there for posterity for everybody to see.
Everything that we say is wrong eventually in the future.
Yeah,
we'll probably know
in
that.
some version of in one of the alternate dimensions, everything has happened, right? So for Jagmeet Singh, I think his leadership is probably the safest. I do not really see. I suppose Francois Blanchet is also pretty safe, but I really don't see a scenario where Singh is resigning on election night, unless they lose a lot of seats. I feel like he's. I feel like he's going to be the leader for a little while. Again, this is going to be something you can play back when I'm wrong, but he does seem like he'll probably gain some seats, and New Democrats don't axe their leaders when they win seats, right? So.
Well, except for Mulcair.
Well, he lost seats. He lost seats.
Yeah, but yeah.
So yeah,
the thing is, it's not that I don't like Jagmeet Singh, is that I look at the numbers right now, and I go like, yeah, this is good for NDP levels, and it tells me that the NDP has basically gave up on the idea of governing ever. They want to be the conscience of Parliament. That tells me that they basically they want to have absolutely a liberal minority so they can have the balance of power, which is fine. But the goal of an election is to win, and I just don't think that Jagmeet Singh can take them there.
The New Democrats.
Maybe I'm wrong again.
Yeah, the New Democrats though would say that they are in it to win. But I think that the lesson they learned from 2015 is that they don't want to compromise on their principles. So I think that their view is that in order to win, people are more or less going to come over to them rather than them moving towards the broader part of the electorate.
That's fair.
And so, like, the question is that ever going to happen in a way that they can win an election without moving more to the center? A lot of the new democratic governments that have been elected around the country aren't the kind of progressive, more left-wing kind of governments that we've seen, platforms that we've seen from Jagmeet Singh and the NDP, Rachel Notley
Right.
and John Horgan. They would be at home in the federal Liberal Party.
That's right.
So, that's, I think, the challenge for them. But in a way, I think that the New Democrats are one of the reasons why I think they're doing pretty well for the NDP, is that I think they're comfortable being like this, being like the way that they are. And that when in 2015 they put on the suit of being, a party that was in the running for governing, it wasn't comfortable. It didn't fit them. And I think they're feeling a little bit more confident in what they're presenting right now. So they feel good about it, but yeah, the question is, it's like Quebec Solidaire in Quebec. Are they ever going to win an election by being the party that they are? Probably not, but if they try to move over to the center, then they aren't the party that they are anyway, so why are they doing it?
That's right. But I'm still wondering, what ifs are fun in political analysis. I'm still wondering if they given a chance to Thomas Mulcair, because they do give chances. Jack Layton had, 4 elections? Is that right? 4? Yeah. If they had given a chance to Tom Mulcair, a debate between Tom Mulcair and Yves-François Blanchet would be fantastic. Right now in Quebec, Jagmeet Singh, he will go to the Quebec debate, of course, but he's not resonating at all. So it's Trudeau versus Blanchet, and for those who don't speak French, when Trudeau speaks French, it sounds fake. We know he speaks French, but he doesn't speak Quebecois French. He speaks Ottawa French, and it sounds weird. And
don't
for
say
those
Ottawa
who say,
French.
"Oh, how can you possibly say this?" It's I'm not being discriminatory, but it sounds a bit weird. I remember, Jean Chrétien spoke whatever. Jean Chrétien had 2 second languages. That's what we used to say 30 years ago, right? So, yeah. Anyway,
we should differentiate Ottawa French. Andrew Scheer in the French language debate, he said he spoke Ottawa French, which
he did.
I know
really?
A lot of
okay.
Franco-Ontarians or people who are from Ottawa who are francophones did not quite appreciate the notion that is how francophones speak French in Ottawa. So why don't we call Trudeau's French international?
That's fair. With a lot of Anglicisms, of course. But the thing is, when I said Ottawa French, I don't mean it badly. I'm just saying it sounds different. We hear it. I'm sure Franco-Ontarians that come to Quebec, they know they're not in Franco Ontario anymore. You can hear it. I'll shut up before
you're making enemies. You're making enemies among the francophones across the country.
Seats,
let's look at the seats. Okay, yeah, let's get to that. Okay, so yeah, now I have them up on the screen. So the PCs are ahead in 18. That's pretty good because I had them at 16 seats that they were favorited in. They had some toss-ups that they were in the running for, and so far they're having a net gain of 7. The Liberals are at 10 seats. That's a loss of 6, and the NDP is at 4 seats for a loss of 1. And the popular vote at this point, and I'm guessing it's primarily because of where the votes are coming in, it's 50% for the PCs, 31 for the Liberals, and 15 for the NDP. Just to look across, there's a lot of blue in the mainland. It doesn't look like there's been a lot of results in Halifax yet. There's been a couple.
So.
If you can see on the screen, a couple seats. So we're hearing from Dartmouth East, where the NDP is ahead. Halifax Needham, Halifax Chebucto. Those are seats they were expected to win. Cole Harbour Dartmouth, the Liberals are ahead. Halifax Citadel, the Liberals are ahead. Those are seats they were expected to be doing well in. Sackville Cobequid, there the PCs are ahead. That was one they were expected to win. But in the mainland of Nova Scotia, outside of Halifax, these are Digby, Annapolis, Kings West, Kings South. These are seats that are not really Antigonish, that's another one. The PCs are ahead.
Hmm.
So either this is going to be a really good night for the PCs, or they're just getting some good polls being counted. It's pretty hard to say because you look at these leads. 21,
Okay.
21 for in Annapolis, 36 votes in Cape Breton East, 9 in Chester St. Margaret's. And in every case, we're only looking at 1 or 2 polls being reported. And I wonder if they are, in some cases, just the advance poll or the special ballots or, the poll that was set up in an old folks' home, that kind of thing, where you get some kind of random results. I think we should still reserve judgment, but certainly it's going well for the PCs. I would say that.
Wow. 3,000 votes against 2,000 against 1. Okay. Cool.
And the Greens are sitting at 2% at this stage, which is more or less where they were expected to be.
How many mail-in ballots did you say there was? 9,000?
As of Saturday, there was 9,000. So there could be a few more since then. But they had a lot. They had over 100,000 that were advanced polling, advanced voting, and I think in all of the votes that were cast before Election Day, it was around 160,000. If I'm not mistaken. Which is pretty good. The population of Nova Scotia is under 1 million, and the number of people who vote in an election there is only in the 500, 600,000. So. We'll see. The PCs are off to a roaring start, though, I have to say. But yeah, a lot of these are just so few polls reporting that it just could be. Maybe this is the blue mirage. Maybe we're having a PC blue mirage.
It's possible. I mean, and if that's the case, if they say they go to 25 seats and then finally they end up at 19 or 20, as we kind of expect, I hope this will be a lesson for the federal election.
Is the conservative vote always being underestimated? I mean, a lot of conservatives would say that's the case in polls. But we did kind of see there was the momentum, right?
Right.
So the last polls of the campaign were better primarily just for the PCs. The NDP didn't seem to be gaining kind of momentum going into the last day. So it's possible the PCs are going to overperform.
Although that Narrative poll had the NDP at 27. I mean, Narrative is not a very high-rated polling firm, in my model at least, but that was surprising. But then, the last Main Street that had the NDP at 2021, I think that's pretty much what we expect, which should be enough for them to keep the seat that they already had. The PC is 22 now, 22-9.
Yeah. So far we have 35 seats that are reporting some results. So there's still 20 to go. Just to look at the map again here on the screen, a lot of these, some of these are Liberal ridings, some of them are Conservative ridings. And again, a lot of these aren't coming in from Halifax. The Halifax area and the suburbs around it, mostly still gray on the map. And those are areas that the Liberals are going to be doing much better in. And so their seat count's going to go up and their vote count's going to go up. But the ones that are on the map already, a lot of these are blue, and a lot of them we weren't expecting to be blue. Now we're getting a few more from Cape Breton. Victoria the Lake still the Liberals ahead, but the PCs are now ahead in Cape Breton East and Richmond and Cumberland North. I'm going to click on this one. Let's see. Cumberland North now. This is the riding where Elizabeth Smith McCrossan was the former PC MLA who was booted from the caucus after she seemed to be involved in a border protest. She has 24 votes right now. Bill Casey, former Liberal MP, he's at 25. And David Whiteman of the PCs is just at 8. But this will be one to watch, Cumberland North, if she is able to hold on to that seat, especially in the context of the PC seemingly doing pretty well everywhere else.
Huh. That's interesting. Well, there's only one box basically open, so we can't tell. But she had 24 votes, 25 for the Liberal, and only 8 for the PC. Maybe it was a favorable
it was in her neighborhood
poll for her. But yeah, maybe. But wow. I mean, it's really hard for independents to get elected, but at provincial legislature, especially for the smaller provinces, I mean, you don't need 100,000 votes. You need a few thousand votes. So I guess it's much easier. But wow, that's impressive. Hard to win as an independent.
Yeah, yeah. Um, just as you guys can see, I have to look at the comments on the screen because of my technical ineptitude. So if you guys want to mention if this is all looking all right and what I'm doing with the screen, let me know because this is the first time I do this. There was one question. There was is there a PPC anti-lockdown party in Nova Scotia? No. The Atlantic Party I don't think was taking those kinds of positions, and they're not really running anywhere. If there is one, it's maybe it was Elizabeth Smith McCrossan who was the one who was against the restrictions at the border. But no, there's not that. There's not really a lot of fringe parties in Nova Scotia. It's mostly just independents, and not there's not 20 parties running or 30 like there is sometimes in Ontario. CBC is calling Queens. Let's see this. Oh yeah, they're two elected now. Which ones are they electing? Queens, okay, and Argyle. Those are two seats that we're expecting that the PCs would do pretty well. Let's take a look at Argyle. Colton LeBlanc, he has 82% of the vote, with 9 of 22 polls reporting. So people in Argyle like Colton LeBlanc. And what's the other one? It was Queens. Let's take a look at Queens.
PC safe, good. I'm okay. I'm okay.
2 for 2 so far. In Queens, Kim Maslin has 74% of the vote with 8 of 28 polls reporting. The CBC would be able to call this because of the history of the riding, the fact that everybody was expecting this would go for the PCs, and the early polls are in their favor. So yeah, that's not much of a surprise. But yeah, look at that, 23 seats. Now it's down to 22 elected and leading for the PCs against 11 for the Liberals, 5 for the New Democrats. There's still a lot of seats to come in, right? Because we're only now at 38. So that means there's still 17 seats to come in.
Many more urban seats, urban and suburban seats also.
Yeah, I saw a comment, someone saying how the rural seats report first. That's usually the case because rural seats have a lot of smaller polls. So they can get counted earlier. It's as simple as that, right? If there's a small town that has a polling district that has 50 people that are voting, then that can be counted more quickly than the urban one that has several hundred.
Are we looking at a minority? Are we? We're seeing right now. It looks. I know it's early, but it looks like a minority.
Well, you heard it here first. Philippe G. is projecting a minority government for the Progressive Conservatives. Maybe.
I just said minority. It could be minority liberal.
Maybe you're jinxing it like a shutout. Usually, you're not supposed to mention.
That's possible. No hitter in the 8th. Yeah. But it would be the first time since the pandemic began that minority government would not get a majority.
Yeah, I guess technically BC, they were a minority at the time the election was called.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, British Columbia, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland and Labrador, all minorities. The incumbent got re-elected with majorities. Although in Newfoundland and Labrador, it was much closer than we thought.
Yeah.
I know there's some legal challenges going on right there to throw election results away. We'll see how that goes, but.
Nova Scotia has a history of minority governments. They last elected one in 2006. The PCs had 23 seats in that election. The NDP was second; they had 20. And also in 2003, there was a minority government. So Nova Scotia politics are pretty evenly split between the three parties. Yeah. It's actually kind of interesting. Yeah. So if this does end up with a minority government, it's perhaps not too surprising. But boy, I don't think the Liberals were expecting a minority going into this. They seemed pretty confident at the outset that they'd win a majority. But I think there were some nervous people.
At some point, I had 40 seats for the Liberals. I didn't think necessarily it was going to end up that way, but the early the polls that we had in the spring and the summer showed overwhelmingly the Liberals being very popular. So maybe that's what the lukewarm, or not lukewarm, that's not the right word, but just the ordinary campaign can do for you. Campaigns really do matter, even if you have a good record, even if you people, the numbers, the impressions or the approval numbers are still good for you. If you have a bad campaign, it can cost you.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the criticisms of the Liberals, was that it was a bit flat, their campaign. Rankin, he was okay in the debate, but he seemed to be the least interested person there. So yeah, that's a warning for Trudeau. You can't coast into
Nope.
a majority government.
Absolutely can't. Am I seeing the independent leading right now? Yes, I am.
Oh, she is. Let's
Look at
take a
that.
look. Let's take a look at Cumberland North. Doodle-doo. 44% now for Elizabeth Smith McCrossan. She has 111 votes, a 6-vote lead over Bill Casey. But yeah, look at the PCs. PCs only have 23 votes, 9%.
Flat.
Really out of it. But this is a riding that has had, Bill Casey used to be an independent, right? When he left the Conservative Party.
It's true.
And there was a candidate, I can't recall his name now, it was several elections ago. He was also booted out of the PC caucus, and he ended up taking, I think, about 29% of the vote, or something in the 20s. So it's a riding that has, an independent spirit, let's put it that way. Let's take a look. Now we're starting to get some of the more of the Halifax ones coming in. So the NDP seems to be leading in Dartmouth East, Dartmouth North, Bedford South. That would be a bit of a surprise. Halifax Needham and Halifax Chebucto. As the Liberals are ahead in Halifax Citadel, Cole Harbour. There's still nothing yet from Fairview Clayton Park, Halifax Armdale, Hammonds Plains Lucasville, Bedford Basin. These are seats that the Liberals are expected to do well in. And some of the map is starting to get a bit redder again. You see the Liberals are ahead in Yarmouth and Clare. They're ahead in Hants East, Hants West, Chester St. Margaret's. So, yeah, we're starting to see that the Liberals are reclaiming some of the rural places that they were supposed to. And in Cape Breton, Cape Breton is now entirely blue, except for, which seats are these? Sorry, I'm doing this badly. Glace Bay Dominion.
North Side Westmount.
Yeah, North Side Westmount. And Glace Bay Dominion was an interesting one. This is John Morgan. He's the NDP. He's leading. He's got 111 votes to 108 for John McCarthy. Oh, this was the funny riding where all the candidates are named John. And one of them actually is named John. Anyway, John Morgan was the former mayor of the Cape Breton Regional Municipality. So he was a bit of a name. All right, so looks like it's still pretty good for the PCs right now. They're at 25 leading and elected. Liberals just at 11. And the popular vote, again, we still need those Halifax ridings to come in, and I don't think a lot of the votes have been counted in Halifax. But the PCs are leading the popular vote at this stage by 15, 16 points, but I do not expect it'll stay that way.
Interesting. I'm thinking of what will happen of the deal with Trudeau for the childcare program. I'm guessing Tim Houston would probably try to make his own deal because again he stressed very clearly that he was a progressive, conservative but a progressive.
And Higgs and King, the premiers in the Maritimes, the PC premiers also signed on. So, and even Doug Ford. I hear recently Doug Ford saying they're very open to it.
Mm-hmm. Cumberland South has been called.
Cumberland South.
Not a surprise.
Another PC riding. Let's take a look at that one. I just like pulling these up. I don't know if people can see them well on the screen, but it's fun for me. 72% for Tory Rushton. Not much of a contest there. But yeah, the Cumberland area is one that is usually pretty safe for the PCs. They have a lot of historical strength there. So not a big shock that they're winning there. Sorry, I'm just checking people's comments.
Oh, go ahead. I'm looking at the results. Cole Harbour results to come. Dartmouth South. Yeah. A lot of Liberal seats should come in among the ridings that haven't called anything yet. So it will get tighter, but the PCs are getting awfully close to the high 20s right now, which would mean a minority. But
yeah, well, they need 28 to get majority, and the seats that are still to come, Lunenburg West is a Liberal seat, presumably. Though the PCs are leading in Lunenburg again, it's just one poll though. But Fairview, Clayton, Hammonds Plain, that one's still to come in. Halifax, Armdale, those are Liberal seats. Bedford Basin, Waverley Fall River, Beaverbank. I think that is one that the PCs won last time, so they could jump up to 26. Preston, Eastern Shore, Eastern Passage. These are generally liberal ridings. Inverness, that's more of a conservative riding that hasn't reported yet. So, hey, they could actually, if things go well for them the rest of the way, they could eke out 28 seats out of this. Maybe they could.
28 seats would be at the margin of my confidence interval.
Well, there you go.
So I had 19 plus or minus 9, which sounds ridiculous when you say it, but of course it's a Gaussian distribution, a bell-shaped distribution. So the 28 seats for the PC was very unlikely, even if it was within the 95% confidence interval. But
you and I get that.
But
of course.
Yeah. Well, of course, and what people who are here right now, they're probably also polling nerds, and so I'm allowed to speak a bit of math.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not like you and I understand that it's okay, but
well, it's okay, but it doesn't mean it's
not
good,
ideal,
right? But again, the lack of polling, and also and I don't want to badmouth anybody here, but the pollsters for Atlantic Canada, where were they? They poll quarterly, except when there's an election. How convenient is that? So that's too bad.
Yeah, well, when I looked at how the pollsters did in 2017, just recently, they were pretty close.
Yeah.
So, though I think they did underestimate the PCs a little bit, because I think the gap ended up being, 4 points for the Liberals?
Yeah.
But I think some of the polls were suggesting it would be a bit wider than that. But so far, the popular vote, I also have it on my phone. So when you see me looking off screen, audience, it's because I'm looking at the phone. It's not because I'm distracted. So the PCs right now are at 47% and the Liberals at 32%, which would be quite a miss. Because the last pollsters...
38, 36, I believe it was, right?
36. They both had them at 36.
Yeah.
And Narrative, doing earlier in the campaign, had them at 31. So if they end up plus 40 or over 40, that would not be a terrific performance. But again, still early days. I mean, look,
the NDP and the Liberals will go up when Halifax comes in, but
well, yeah, look, we're still only talking about 14,000 or about 30,000 votes. So it's not a big number, though it's starting to get a more interesting one. Conservatives are at 26 leading and elected. Let me look at the map again. Now they're at 27.
Wow.
27 leading and elected. Hey, they're one short. So 27 seats for the PCs, 12 for the Liberals, 7 for the New Democrats, and 1 independent. That puts us at 47 seats. So still 8 to come in.
Okay, Eric, you're Ian Rankin right now in your hotel room or at your home, wherever he is. You're with your wife, your family, and you look at this. What are you thinking? What should I have done differently?
Yeah. I mean, you'd be looking at these results, and people might be telling you, well, still more votes to come in, and some of these could flip. But yeah, you got to be pretty worried. And I mean, he just took the job back in February, I think it was.
Right.
So he hasn't been in there for very long. And some people would probably claim that he was gifted a pretty good place to be in. And so if he ends up costing the Liberals a win in Nova Scotia, that would be quite a result indeed. So we'll see. But yeah, look at that. They're now leading and elected the PCs in 27 seats. I want to make sure.
The 28 would be Cumberland North. How funny would that be?
Yeah. Yeah, that could be it.
30 now. Jeez, look at 30. That.
Oh, yeah, my goodness. Okay. Let's wait for this to... There you go. 30 to 10, 7, and 1. So now we're at still 6 seats to come in. But look at that map. The map it's all rural. The PCs are winning everything that's rural. And, I mean, the only seat that they're currently ahead in Halifax is Clayton Park West. But there it is. It's only 19 votes to 14. So I think maybe we should take a step back. Let's take a look at some of these ones where the PCs are leading. So they're got 154 votes in Antigonish. So a decent amount of votes are being counted there. Chester St. Margaret's 35. So Clayton Park West, one poll reporting. Let's keep going down the list. Digby, Annapolis. There's 5 polls reporting. Eastern Shore 3. Guysborough, Chiracahedy 7. But that was one that was, they were considered in the running for. Just 2 polls in Lunenburg, 2 polls in Lunenburg West. Those are 2 seats that are usually safe for the Liberals. So we'll see if those leads hold. The pick 2 seats, they are all pretty safe for the Conservatives. The Sackville seats as well, Shelburne. So yeah, I mean, there are a lot of these seats that are just a few votes being counted. But this is a good result for the PCs. And, if I was leaning somewhere to make a call, I don't think I'd be leaning very strongly towards the Liberals pulling this one off.
Oh, are you doing the needle now? The Eric needle. That's right.
Yeah.
But then again, I mean, how much did you say? We're talking about 40,000 votes?
Yeah.
Out of probably 300 to 400,000. So
let me see how many. I'm going to look this up. How many people voted in 2017?
Right.
Philip, are you able to see the YouTube chat?
No.
Okay.
I'm only on Zoom.
Okay. So how many people voted in the 2017 campaign? It was 400,000. So
Yeah. So
we're at less than
even
10%. Yeah, less than 10% have been counted.
and not very representative of the whole population. Although, I mean, if you're the PCs, you're happy. If the scores were flipped, we'd probably be seeing, it's going to be an easy majority win for the Liberals. But so we don't know yet. But if you're the PC, you like this.
Yeah. Hey, audience in the chat, I've got my chat box open. Is anybody ready to call it? Where do you guys think that this is going to end up? Make your predictions now and take our jobs.
I think minority. Again, the momentum. I'm not saying which color. My with the latest polls that we had, I was pretty sure. I was really hoping my model would say minority. It said majority by 1 seat on average, of course, for the Liberals, but absolutely no confidence whatsoever in that call. I was sure it was going to be a minority, but now I'm thinking, maybe Nova Scotians will surprise us. And if you're Trudeau right now, you're looking at this. Are you worried? Maybe.
I think so.
Maybe it's early. Well, maybe we're just talking about noise too. So
it would be something though if they come down from being at 28 seats to to the mid-teens. So the audience thinks. Got to see more Halifax. That's true. Jeb, yes, Jeb is going to win this one. He's going to pull it off.
Wise words.
People need more seats. PC minority 27 seats with independent 1. PC minority this big. All right. The consensus seems to be that this will end up being a PC minority. That would be something. That would really be something. And if you're Aaron O'Toole, you know what? This is a pretty good outcome. If on the first week of the campaign you have some good news. And look at this.
I feel like it's
Gary Burrell could be the official opposition leader. The Liberals are at 10 and the NDP's at 10.
I feel like it's worse news for Trudeau than it is good news for O'Toole, because clearly Tim Houston put some distance between the federal party and himself, and maybe that actually helped him in the campaign, saying, "Listen, these Conservatives are not the same as our Conservatives." Perhaps that moved the needle a little bit. Although Nova Scotians wouldn't know this, maybe when Tim Houston was asked that question and he answered, it was more for us outsiders. So,
well, also Rankin was, he did try to make a connection. I think during the debate, if I recall correctly, he said something. It was the one moment that I switched off my stream and I couldn't get it back, and I only heard he did make some connection between Tim Houston and Aaron O'Toole. So,
why wouldn't you?
Yeah. So I think Houston was trying to inoculate himself a little bit from that, But Aaron O'Toole, when he was running in the leadership campaign, not last time because he was up against Peter MacKay, but the time before that, he made a biggish deal about the fact that he had some Nova Scotia roots. That when he was posted there, when he was with the Air Force, that he spent a lot of time in Nova Scotia. So, if the PCs have a good result tonight, I wouldn't be surprised if he finds his Nova Scotian in him again.
It's possible. Absolutely, I would. Yeah, you have to find the positive where you can where it's at. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
NDP is leading in 11 now. Now that would be a surprise. That would be a huge surprise. I'm guessing those Halifax seats are showing up now.
yeah. Um,
Hmm.
I'm going to look at the map again, just to get my bearings. So, I got leading and
Are
elected
you
20.
are you doing this all night until everything is counted, Eric?
Well, I'm
Is that the plan?
as long as you are, Philippe.
I will need to take a break at some point. I've been up since 6 this morning. I wrote 2 columns. I did radio and television in both languages. I am shot. I'm gonna take a little break and then come back. Is that okay with you? Is that okay with
Sure.
everybody? We can have
Uh,
a poll, everybody. I need a little break here, but I'm gonna go cry in the corner. No, that's not true. It's a joke. I'll go for a little break and I'll come back. All right?
okay, just turn your camera off and you mute or something. Don't ruin
Absolutely.
anything that I've set up here. All
All
right.
right. See you soon.
Philip is going to go walk the cats, and let's take a look again. So yeah, these numbers are pretty surprising so far. Still six elected just for the PCs, and they are Cumberland South, Pictou West, Colchester, Muscodobit, Valley, Queens, and Argyll. Those are all seats that we would have thought PCs would win. But if you're looking at the map with me, oh boy, PC party will form next Nova Scotia government, CBC News projects. So they are holding off on a majority or minority. So Philippe just left at the most important part. But yeah, and if the PCs have anything to thank, it's rural Nova Scotia. They've more or less swept most of rural Nova Scotia. They're still without any seats in Halifax itself. They're in Waverly Fall River, Beaver Bank, and Sackville Uniacke. They're doing pretty well. NDP's leading Sackville Cobequid. That's an interesting one. But yeah, they don't really have any urban seats here, and it's just rural. They're doing quite well in the southwest and the Cumberland Colchester area. Here in the Kings and Hants regions, Annapolis, Digby Annapolis. That was one that would have thought the Liberals would be pretty safe in. But yeah, if the PCs are going to pull this off, they have rural Nova Scotia to thank, because it doesn't seem like Halifax is going for the PCs. As you can see here on the map, that's a lot of pale orange. Now, the Dartmouth seats were supposed to be good for the New Democrats, but look at this one, Preston. That is one that is was thought to be a very safe Liberal seat. Cole Harbour, Halifax Needham, Halifax Chebucto, those are safe seats for the NDP. So yeah, we're seeing some pretty fascinating results. So I'm going to take a look at the chat for you guys, see what's going on while Philippe is away. CTV is calling it, CBC is calling it. Well, then I guess the RIT live stream will call that it's going to be a PC government of some stripe. I guess the question is whether it's going to be a majority or minority. There's not, let's see, how many seats are there left to count? Still 4 more that have to come in. But it's going to be hard for the PCs, I think, to get to 28 when the 4 to come in are Bedford Basin, Eastern Passage. What else we got? That's the report. Inverness is a seat that they'll probably be ahead in. Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier. Oh, that's an interesting one. That's one that the NDP was really hoping to win. So maybe even the NDP gets an extra one out of this. So it would be difficult for the PCs to get 28 at this stage. It looks like to me they'd have to move ahead. They'd have to win Eastern Passage, but Eastern Passage... Eastern Passage, no, I was mixing it up with Eastern Shore. That is a seat that the PC probably are going to be able to win, so that puts them up to 27. They're also heading Eastern Shore. Bedford Basin, I think, would be a difficult one for the PCs, but we'll see. So if they have Eastern Passage, and they have Inverness, and that would get them up to 28 with Elizabeth Smith McCrossan as the wild card in the legislature. What are you guys talking about? CBC calls. They advanced voting counted late, right? I think that was the case, so maybe some of the Liberals will move ahead in some of these. Liberal NDP pact. I mean, there could be, but if you're Ian Rankin and you go from more or less a majority government to 13 seats where he is now, it'd probably be higher than this. But if you drop that much, your legitimacy is pretty much shot. So while he could work out an agreement with Gary Burl of the New Democrats and have some sort of coalition or a supply and arrangement to keep the government in power, if you lose an election that badly, you usually step down, and I would expect that's what he would do. So I would expect that Houston will become the next premier, but we'll see how close the Liberals get. If the Liberals get a lot closer, if some of these numbers get closer, then maybe we could see something happen there. I think that would actually be awful news for Trudeau, in a way, if that kind of thing happens in Nova Scotia and Rankin loses but still holds on. It writes itself, right, for the opposition parties. Will Elizabeth Smith McCrossan support a PC government if, say, they end up at 27? Well, you know what? These kinds of things can make suddenly for good friends. Oh, I think he's back.
Hey.
You missed it.
CBC called it while I was getting a bite to eat. Incredible.
Walking the cats, like I said. I knew it. Taking the cats out for a stroll. Yeah, they've called it a PC government. So they're not. I was going through the numbers and.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going through the numbers, and the seats are there that Houston could potentially get up to 28 or higher, but it's going to be a razor's edge, I think.
This is the first election that I covered. This is my 8th election, where the polls will have been really, really wrong. I mean, I know you went through BC and Alberta close to a decade ago.
Yes.
But this is I know it's a small province and there wasn't that many, there weren't very many polls, but this is still a stunning development. Were you on TV for BC or Alberta? Were you live?
No. Thank goodness I wasn't. No, but yeah, Alberta, that was a tough time, I got to say. You're lucky that you got into this after 2012, 2013. Because so the 2012 Alberta election, the polls do quite badly. The Quebec election 2012, they also didn't do very well. Not enough that it was completely off. 2012.
Yeah.
They weren't very good, and so people were still asking questions. And then there was BC in 2013. And after the BC election results came in 2013, I wrote a piece, I remember, on 308, more or less. It was almost like an existential piece about what is this? What am I doing here? Why? And but you know what? We'll see, because look, the popular vote right now is 45 for the PCs, 33 for the Liberals. Halifax, I think a lot of the Halifax seats still have to be counted more than just a handful, right? Because let's look at the Halifax seats. 6 polls reporting, 11 polls reporting, 2 polls reporting, 1 reporting, 11. So, there are some votes still to be counted in those areas. So I imagine that the result will get a lot closer. So it is possible that we'll end up with a popular vote that's not too far off from the polls, because the polls were suggesting the gap was 2 to 3 points for the Liberals.
Yeah.
If it ends up being 2 to 3 points for the PCs, that's not really a polling fail.
Nope.
But it
not with a sample. With a sample of 500.
Yeah.
It would be a plus or minus 4, let's say. But it's. I'm trying to. Thing is, when I did my pollster ratings, I went back as far back to 2014. I figured it wasn't worth going any further back. And all the provincial election and the federal election since then, the polls were, on average, pretty good. I mean, in Quebec, they were a bit off, but still we knew the winner. But something like this that we're seeing tonight, that's a big surprise.
Yeah.
I thought that the worst, it would be almost tied between the Liberals and the PCs, and now it's almost tied between the Liberals and the NDP. So.
Yeah, that's surprising. The NDP is doing pretty well. So maybe that narrative poll from the mid-campaign period was the one that was closer to the mark. because they had them in Halifax. It was a
20
small sample size,
yeah.
but it was 40% they had for the NDP in Halifax, and the Liberals at 38. So we'll wait and see.
And you know that independent Miss Smith McCrossan looks like she's going to win. I mean, it's still there's a lot to be counted, but that she's leading by she has 57% of the vote right now.
Let's take a look. We'll pull her up on the big screen here.
Cumberland North.
Oh yeah, you're right. Wow, she's up by nearly 30 points over Bill Casey, which is really kind of shocking. I thought Bill Casey would have been a bit more of a draw, and the PC's in fourth. Wow. So that just sells the story right there. Yeah. Philippe, can you skate for a second? I would like to get a drink of water, if that's all right.
Of course.
I'll be right
I can't
back.
see the comments though, but so I'll just say hi to everybody. If you don't know me, I'm from 338 Canada, and last night when I released my Nova Scotia projection, I basically said this is worth zero. I have zero confidence in those numbers. The polls will be wrong. And it turns out I was right on this, but all the numbers that you see on the website are wrong, and it's a tough hit to take. However, I would say this: that my nightmare. Well, I'll wait for Eric to put his headphone. My nightmare scenario is not that the polls are wrong. My nightmare scenario is that the polls are mostly good and my projection is crap. That's the worst part. Because, people will say, hey, your projections were wrong. It's like, yeah, look at the polling that we had to work with. That doesn't bother me much. What it really scares me is that the polls are right and I'm off by 25 seats at the federal level. So that would be just enough.
Have you done a lot of Atlantic elections?
In New Brunswick, I did New Brunswick last year. Out of 49 seats, I had 47 right winners. And the two that I missed were within the confidence intervals. It was just the best that I ever had. PEI, I didn't do a full projection. I had the PC winning and the Greens second. That's what happened. And then Newfoundland, when they canceled everything in Newfoundland to go in not online voting, but mail-only voting, I wrote that, okay, I'm off. I took the projections off. I said I'm not doing it anymore because it's too unusual. The turnout will be very low.
Yeah. Well, Atlantic elections are can be very difficult. I find I've always found that because of how the local candidate can often mean so much, and the lack of polls. Right, there's usually not that many polls in Nova Scotia, and as we saw here, there was really just the Léger and the narrative that came out in the mid-campaign, which kind of set the table of the Liberals being at around 40%, the PCs at around 30%, and then there was just the Main Street poll at the end. There was a Main Street poll at the beginning of the campaign, so we had something to compare it to. But yeah, it wasn't a lot of data to work with.
But even the Léger was a sample of 300 people.
Yeah,
I mean that was really surprised. It's very unlike Léger to do something like this. Perhaps they didn't have a media partner. Of course, somebody has to pay for this. We have to remember that those pollsters don't make much money off political polls. I was surprised. I thought Léger would go back on the field. He didn't. Only Main Street did. And Main Street had a statistical tie between the two parties. Maybe that's what it'll end up being, but the Conservatives have a more efficient vote in that scenario.
Well, right now it's still an 11-point gap. But it is very strange right now, the results, right? And it is very early to be doing it because, the Liberals and the NDP are more or less tied in seats. Oh, okay, the NDP's fallen back, but. They're not that far apart, but the NDP still has 19% of the vote, and they're at 9 seats. You wouldn't expect that they'd get 9 seats with 18% of the vote, right?
No.
Or 18, 19%.
No.
So yeah, but yeah, look at the PCs.
I had 7 seats. I had 7 seats with about 21%. So again, we'll see with Halifax as it comes in. But a very efficient vote for the PC. But then again, it's 36,000 to 27. So it's a gap of 9,000 votes. That could change a lot. I mean, the seat distribution won't change that much, probably. The PCs will end up between 25 and 30, probably. But the vote totals, it is slow, huh?
Yeah,
it's 9:20 right now
kind
in
of slow.
Nova Scotia. Yeah.
We're already an hour and 20 into the polls being closed, and The amount of votes being counted, what are we at now? We're at
About 65,000, no, 75,000
yeah,
maybe.
yeah. So we're only at about we're not even at 20% yet. But yeah, no, the PCs. I mean, this is really a terrific result for them, and it is very much the rural urban divide, right? Because
That's right. That's right.
Halifax, the only seats that are urban, there's a couple here that the PCs are. They're more or less like the the suburbs. All the ones in the center of Halifax, in downtown and in Dartmouth, are either NDP or Liberal. But yeah, if you look at the the PCs, they have all the ridings in the southwest, right? You have to get to Annapolis before you find a Liberal, or Chester St. Margaret's, and
Right.
all of Cape Breton, except the ridings that are around Sydney, and there it's Liberals and the NDP are winning those. So yeah, so this is really the rural parts of Nova Scotia coming out and giving the PCs a pretty big win, a pretty surprising one. If we'll see where it all ends up again, but as you said, with the fact that they're at 30 seats now, and
When was the last PC win in Nova Scotia? 2013-ish?
no, they last won in 2006.
2006. It's been a while, huh? Wow.
Yeah, yeah. The NDP won back in 2009, and then the Liberals have won
Right.
since 2013.
Right.
So yeah, let's take a look just to see. Let's look at the leads in some of these. Bedford South, the PCs are leading by 2 votes, so that one could flip. In Clare, they're leading by 5 votes. In Cole Harbour, they're leading by 1. Let me pull that one up. Daryl Johnson, 314. Tony Ince, 313. Jerome Lagme of the NDP at 287. So that's a pretty close one. Where else do they have a lead? This one. These look pretty safe. 140 votes in Hants West. 55 votes in Lunenburg. So some of these leads are pretty narrow. And in the seats that they're trailing, Northside Westmount, that's a seat you'd expect maybe they could win. They're only behind by 69. Kings South, they're behind by 55. Hants East are behind by 7. So a lot of the leads that they have, Dartmouth East, are behind by 2. So a lot of the leads they have, or some of the leads they have, are pretty narrow, but they're trailing in a couple by just a little bit. So if they lose a couple, they could still come out on top. They're going to be very close. They're going to be very, very close to a majority.
Close to a majority.
Yeah, and Elizabeth Smith McCrossan is going to be getting a phone call or two probably.
Speaker.
So yeah.
You gotta laugh.
Yeah. So this will be the thing to watch. It will be where the popular vote's going to end up, because people were, in the last couple of analyses I saw and the last polls, people were saying the Liberal win was no longer sort of a sure thing anymore. But I think a lot of people will be surprised if instead they end up with a PC minority, PC majority, right? And so the questions are going to be, how did the polls miss it, right? So Philippe, how did the polls miss it?
Well, not enough of polls. That's for sure. That's the one thing. Not enough. You need bigger sample sizes, and also perhaps that's not very nice to Nova Scotians who are listening to us right now. But perhaps the pollsters did not care much about this one. There's also that. I mean, no, for Léger to publish, I like Jean-Marc Léger, right? But to publish a 300 sample 2 weeks out from the election and not go back on the field means because he's gonna get destroyed in the rating that I'm gonna give him. My rule is that if you publish during the election, your last poll is the one that is used for the rating.
Yeah.
Of course, Jean-Marc Léger is not going to lose his A+ rating because of this, but it looks bad. It looks bad. So if you poll during a campaign, I mean, don't you want to poll until the end? It tells me that they didn't care that much. But Maybe I'm wrong. I don't want to insinuate their intentions, but something. I mean, clearly, I mean, the polls did see the momentum shift. At least Main Street did. Main Street saw the momentum changing. Um, Perhaps it was too late. But then again, I mean, all these advanced voters, are they counted after?
Here's my cat. Hello.
Oh, there it is. Oh, it's a tabby, beautiful tabby. What's her name or his name?
Her name is Marsouis,
Oh, that's cute.
named after a small village in the Gaspésie.
If we're showing cats, then hang on. I got it right here.
It's gotten to that point.
There you go. This is my Spanish cat who is really not happy right now. It's Vishnu. Woo! Vishnu is my calico.
Oh, that's
There
very
it is.
nice. Very nice.
There you go.
What was
I
she
got a Russian blue upstairs.
What was she projecting for the election?
Chaos. That's what she was projecting. Her name is Vishnu. Projecting
Very
chaos.
Good. Very good.
Oh, 28 right now. Look at that.
Let's take a look at the big old map. Yeah, 28. Are all of them reporting now? We're at 28, 15, 25. We got one more that's still out. Which one is it? Who's the laggard here? Bedford Basin. Bedford Basin.
Yeah, Bedford Basin. That should be
a Liberal seat last time.
Yep.
And if we're just looking at
I have Liberal safe. Man, I hope I don't get any of those safe seats wrong.
yeah, well, look at Bedford South, which is just next door. It's an 8-vote lead for the Liberals here. Their vote is really not coming out. Now, maybe some of it is the advance and the mail vote, and it's going to be coming in later. But the Liberals are losing some seats that they probably shouldn't be losing. The CBC is projecting elected for the PCs: Argyll, Colchester, Muscodoibit, Valley, Cumberland South, Inverness, Kings North, Pictou Centre, Pictou West, Queens, Shelburne. These are all seats that the PCs were expected to win, so they haven't really knocked off. A safe Liberal just yet. But some of these are looking that way.
Are people hammering me in the
No, you guys are all
comments or
understanding, right? You
discussion?
understand what the hell this thing works.
And by the way, if they do, I don't really care. It's if, let's say, there's a Liberal surge in the voting, and the polls were not that wrong, but the PC still win, and that's the nightmare scenario that I described earlier.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like it's going to happen.
No, the people seem fine. They do not seem upset at us. Let's see. We've reached the cat portion of the night. That's right, Colin. We have. Muscodoibit. Thank you. I knew I was getting that one wrong. It's one of those words you just don't often hear out loud. So I'm just looking at your comments. There's one. This question here from Philip Charbonneau. Were there new ridings this election for the minority communities? Yes, there was. They created 4. 3 was for the Acadian population. 1 was for the black population in Halifax. That riding was Preston. And let's see what Preston looks like. Preston Liberals are back ahead. Angela Simmons, 369 to 303 for Coulter Simmons. And Archie Beals at the PCs. That's a close 3-way race. 39%, 32%, 29%. And then the Acadian ridings were, one of them was Argyll. PC's leading there. One of them was, I believe, Richmond.
Argyll, the PC won, declared.
Yeah. In Richmond, the PCs are ahead there. And I think the third one might have been Clare. And and the PCs there. That one's a close one. 748 for Carl DeVoe, 743 for Ronnie LeBlanc. So
and late.
Yeah, so that one is a pretty close one. There are a number of these ridings that are really close. Did we get our first result from Bedford Basin? We did. Let's take a look at it. Kelly Regan, who is the wife of Jeff Regan, the former Speaker of the House of Commons.
Oh.
She's leading 95 votes to 37 for Nick Driscoll.
She's gonna win.
So that looks pretty safe.
Only 2 boxes, but we expect it to be a safe Liberal.
Yeah.
And it looks like it is.
Yeah, but Bedford South, look at this, just 3 votes. and they've already counted 12 of 37 polls.
Wow.
That's a very close one.
Unexpected close one.
Yeah, yeah. 5 votes in Clare, which we already looked at. That one's very close. Let's see how many single digits. Dartmouth East, there's only been one poll open there, and it's 2 votes. But there, the PCs are the incumbent, so you could add that one to them once more votes are being counted. 5 votes in Halifax Chebucto. Only 2 have been counted. See, this is the thing. Look at this.
2 boxes, yeah.
Yeah, Halifax Chebucto, just 2 boxes. Gary Burrell's probably going to win this, but when the votes are counted, that's going to really add to the NDP and Liberal tallies. And Halifax Citadel, Sable Islands, just 3 votes, 3 boxes counted. Labicasulis is at 126 votes to 94 for Lisa Lachance. So yeah, there's still a lot of these Halifax ridings to really count. Whereas, look at the Kings North. The Kings seats, more than half of the votes have been counted in all of them. Lunenburg, only 8 of 39. Lunenburg, the Liberals are still trailing there. That's a bit of a surprise. But they're leading Northside Westmount, where the PCs are the incumbent. So that's, again, a bit of a surprise. I think that's the only PC incumbent who is trailing at the moment, if I'm looking at this. Oh, Dartmouth East as well. But yeah, PCs are holding their seats and
that's right,
picking up a lot of other ones. Popular vote now is still 43 to 33.
It's holding up. It's holding up. They will probably end up in the low 40s or very high 30s, which would have been a miss for the polls.
Yeah. I mean, that's the advantage of the small sample sizes. The margin of error is a lot bigger. So how many votes we got counted? About 120,000. So, and if anybody was wondering what happened to this, I still got it.
Was it yours, or did you take that from the CBC desk?
I've had this thing for as long as I remember. I
don't, really?
I don't remember not having this. I think I had it
wow.
like in university and maybe even in high school or before.
It's a humanities calculator.
Is it?
Well, there's no cosine or.
It took me a second to get that. That's because I was in the humanities, the liberal arts. Anyway. Yeah.
History, right?
Yes, I studied history, the most important subject that covers everything that's ever been.
Oh,
and you just cover something like physics. I don't know.
Just
I didn't like gym, so.
Well, history is just everything that's ever been since recorded, and physics is only everything, matter and light. So it's space, time, matter and light. That's what it is.
Tomato, right?
There you go.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is going to be a lot of questions about why this happened for the Liberals, right? This is really a miss for them. They had this campaign. They should have been able to win it.
Overconfidence, maybe. That has to be part of this discussion.
It does look like, this is a case where if you think you can coast to victory, you can't. You can't. And if Houston had been a bit of a flat campaigner, then maybe the Liberals would have been able to get through. But, when I saw him in the debate, he was the most energetic one. He was making lots of good points. He was really into it. He was in that debate, and he seemed more passionate about what he was doing there than Ian Rankin, who, I'd seen it during the COVID briefings that he would give, that he's very low energy, right? And it's not you're not a good premier because you're high energy or low energy, but when it comes to kind of galvanizing people, giving them enthusiasm in an election campaign, it makes a big difference.
Campaigning is very different from governing. We know that. I remember a friend of mine told me in an analogy. It's okay, so you want to be a cook. All right, so why don't you juggle these balls and we'll see how good you are. That's the difference between campaigning and governing. If you're a good campaigner, it doesn't mean you're a good leader. But we'll see how Tim Houston performs. Ian Rankin looked fine for the 6 months that we had him, but a poor campaign, it doesn't. You can't get out from that. Ça ne pardonne pas, as we say in French. I I mean, the example that I think the classic example is the municipal elections here in Montreal. Denis Coderre was supposed to win. He was leading by 30 points in the early polls, and then he had just a flat one of the worst campaigns I've ever seen. He ran on his record. He didn't run on any ideas, and he just thought he was going to win. And for 2 months, he got crushed, and he lost the mayor. So the mayor race. So, Pauline Marois also really expected to win in 2014.
Yeah.
And that went to really, really bad.
You know, it's interesting. Whenever people have talked about calling an early election, you've heard often David Peterson. No one has ever. You're the first person since this happened that I've heard mention Pauline Marois in 2012.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the. It will be. I'm not exaggerating. It will be in textbooks one day.
Yeah.
Because everything went wrong during that campaign. And the PQ was leading in the polls. I'm not saying they would have gotten a majority, but the PQ was leading in the polls. It was a reasonable call for Pauline Marois, and it was her call. She didn't get brought down by the opposition. And she brought in Pierre Calparado, as you know, it put the fist in the air. But it was not just that. That's what we remember. Every day was a bad news and a new tile that would fall on the PQ. One of the worst campaigns I've ever seen. And then the Liberals got a majority.
Yeah.
Jim Prentice is also a good example of early action.
Yes.
But he still had 1 year to go.
Yeah.
And then, he started mansplaining during the debate to Rachel Notley. And of course, voters don't like that.
Yeah. No.
Voters do not like overconfidence.
Yeah. Math is hard.
That was so awful.
As you tried to embarrass me with my calculator.
I did not see that debate live.
No,
but I read about it and I was like, he did not say that for real. And I went to check the clip and I could not believe that Jim Prentice said, "I know math is hard," when he was wrong.
I don't remember if I was watching that live. I wanted to one comment from Valerie Baczynski says, "Big story is the number of women leading and elected for NDP and PCs." So I just wanted to point that out.
Oh yeah.
Because there were a lot of many more women running this campaign than in previous ones. I don't have a count or anything like this when you, so I can't see it. But let's just see among the ones that are actually elected. Let's just take a look. Well,
I'll let you coast for a little bit. I have to check on something. All right, I'll be right back.
All right, no problem. Well, a lot of the elected people here are. There we go. Susan LeBlanc. Well, this is one where everybody was a woman in this Dartmouth North. Susan LeBlanc was elected for the NDP in this riding. Big lead over the Pam Cooley of the Liberals, but she was the incumbent. Let's just take a look at some of these ridings that... so we're seeing that the Liberal incumbent in Antigonish is trailing. Michelle Thompson, Randy Delory is trailing by a big margin. This is 24 points. That'll be tough for him to overcome. Where else do we have an incumbent trailing? Chester St. Margaret's, Jacob Killowee. He is a single vote behind Daniel Barkhouse. So that'll be one to keep watching for Chester St. Margaret's. But that's one that the PCs have right now, and they're at 29 seats. So if they lose that, they'll drop down to 28. In Clare, Ronnie LeBlanc, we talked about him a little bit earlier. He's 20 votes behind Carl DeVoe. That's another incumbent who could be going down to defeat. In Colchester North, there's one that is actually a defeated incumbent, although it's not the incumbent candidate, it's the incumbent party. Colchester North, there was one who was, I can't recall who it was. It was either Porter or Karen Casey. Anyway, can't remember which one was which. But anyway, Marilyn Smith was the incumbent for the party, but he was a new candidate. But anyway, that's a pickup for the PCs. Where else do we got some incumbents that are trailing? Dartmouth East. There we have Tim Hellman. He's only 2 votes back, and there's been a grand total of 21 votes counted. So I'm not going to prognosticate on that one. Digby Annapolis, this is Jimmy McAlpine. He is behind. This is a pickup for the PCs if they can hold on to it. Where else do we got some incumbents? Eastern Shore, Kevin Murphy of the Liberals behind Kent Smith. That would be another pickup for the PCs.
That's a big surprise. I did not see that coming.
Yeah. No, there's a number of these. Here's Fairview Clayton Park. This was one that I thought was probably pretty safe for the Liberals. The NDP, Joanne Hussey, is 5 points ahead. She's got a lead of 167 votes. A lot of votes have been counted. So that would be a pickup for the NDP in the Halifax area. Guysborough Tracadie, this was one that was looking like it was going to be a bit of a toss-up, but in the end it wasn't a toss-up. Greg Murrow wins with 64% against 31 for Lloyd Hines, 20 of 27 counted there. I'm just going through the map looking at defeated or trailing incumbents. Halifax Armdale, the Liberals trailing there by 6 points behind the New Democrats. That would be a big shift.
Wow.
That was Julie Melanson, who is running for the New Democrats there. Then we got the Hants East and Hants West. This is Michael Blois of the Liberals is trailing, and in Hants West, Brian Casey is trailing, but I think he is, in this case, might be not the Liberal MLA. Where else we got? Kings West. There is Liberals are trailing. Emily Lutz. This would be another pickup for the PCs. Lunenburg, 70 vote gap. The Liberals, Suhan Loans Croft behind Susan Corkum Greek. Thomas Trappenberg used to be the Green leader. He's got 3% of the vote. And here's actually the only PC that I think there's two PCs. Here's another one, but Northside Westmount. The Liberals are actually leading here by 206 votes. And keep on just going for these incumbents. Liberals trailing in Richmond. PCs trailing Sackville, Cobequid. The NDP is doing really well in the Halifax area. Doing really well.
They really are, yeah.
Yeah. So that's where we are right now. 29 PCs, 15 Liberals, 10 New Democrats, 1 Independent. Boy, they might just squeak by.
And I have one safe. I had Lunenburg West safe for the Liberals, and they lost it. Well, it appears that they will lose it. I mean, these are very, very rare. Let me just check. The Liberals had won it by 20 points last time around.
What's the gap right now?
That's a collapse. The gap is, I had it right there. Hang on. No, Lunenburg West. The gap is
11
now
points.
It's 10. Yeah, 11
Wow.
points.
That's a huge swing. It's a 31-point swing.
Even with, I think even with good polls, I would have missed that one. I mean, the major, it's 20-point swing, and the NDP is exactly at my projection, 20%.
So it's just the Liberals and the NDP vote moving around.
Yeah, absolutely. So wow, Liberals and PC, yeah. So wow.
People are
I'm gonna hear it in the morning. That's
Bill
right.
Bill Doderive is as surprised as we are about Lunenburg West. He says it was safe. So there are some questions here about whether this is going to be a majority or a minority.
Yeah, I see on my
28,
screen right
they're
now,
back down to
28,
28.
16. Yeah, they have to name a speaker.
Yeah.
You think that the independent, I mean, she may play independent, but she is a conservative.
Yeah, she'll probably vote with them most of the time.
So most of the time, the NDP at 10 is still shocking. It's within my confidence interval. It's just that it's really the upper end.
Yeah. So if the PCs are going to win a majority, they got to hold all of these. So that means they got to hold. Which one is the one I was looking at? No, the Liberals just moved ahead in Clare, I think. So now they're down to 27. So now the PCs need to pick up a seat. So they'd look at Bedford South. They're behind by 3 votes. That's incredible. They'd look at Clare. They're behind by 4 votes. Dartmouth East, they're behind by 2. Glace Bay Dominion, they're behind by 24. They got a path. The path is definitely there. They're behind by 21 votes in Sackville, Cobequid. These are close results. 21 votes in Yarmouth. Those are a lot of opportunities to fall their way. Their leads are pretty safe in most of the places. At least a couple hundred votes in most places. So I'd say the chances that the PCs can win maybe 2 of those seats and end up at 29, I'd say right now are pretty good. I'd say it'd be pretty unlikely now at this stage that maybe they end up at 27. They don't pick up the ones that they're trailing in, but they might still manage a majority government, which is just kind of shocking because PCs keeping the Liberals to a minority. I don't think anybody would be too surprised about that.
No.
PCs emerging with a minority, a bit of a surprise, but a majority, that'll be a surprise.
No. Absolutely.
Liberals were ahead by 20 or 30 points just a few months ago.
Yeah. Let me pull up the Nova Scotia polls. So the list of polls that I have here. Okay, so let's go back to February. Liberal plus 24. Liberals plus 24. May, Liberal plus 28. Then Angus Street in June plus 8, more reasonable. Then Main Street in July plus 12. Léger in August plus 10. Narrative Research in August plus 9. And then 4 days ago or 3 days ago, Liberals plus 2 for Main Street. So they saw the momentum.
Yeah,
but
I guess
they
so.
really badly missed the final outcome.
Main Street, what days do you know? I know you usually put the midpoint,
the
but
middle,
do you have...
yeah, the middle. It was 14 to 16 of August. So
Okay,
it was
so-
really last minute.
Yeah. So yeah, they might have been
500
catching the
people.
momentum, but because right now the popular vote is 42 for the PCs, 34 for the Liberals. I mean, it's getting to the point where it'll be on the outside maybe of the margin of error,
Yeah, absolutely.
but and as more votes are counted in Halifax area, it's probably going to keep closing. The NDP is right on. They're at 21. The Greens are right on. So it is, if this is where we end up with the PCs winning by, let's say, 4 points or something like that, because they're currently ahead by 9 or a little bit less than that, it is just going to be presumably some PCs at the last minute or some Liberals at the last minute going over to the PCs and some undecideds breaking for the PCs.
Yeah,
That's what it's
absolutely.
going to be. Unless the turnout is very unusual, right?
Yeah.
Because the turnout right now is not looking particularly great. How many votes we got counted here using my calculator? We're only at about 165,000. So still a long ways to go to get to the 400 plus that it was of the last time.
Low turnout election favors the PC. Maybe that's what we'll be saying. Absolutely. Maybe this is what it is, a low turnout election, and the PC get 3-4 points more than where they were expected. That's possible. That's a lesson
Yeah.
for the federal Liberals.
And Callum McDermott makes a point, NDP overperforming may be helpful for federal NDP in Halifax. I'm sure the federal New Democrats are pretty happy about this result because they don't have any seat in Nova Scotia, and they haven't had one since 2011.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Megan Leslie, Robert Chisholm. So yeah, this could give them a shot. I think that with their polls lately in Atlantic Canada, the NDP is in a spot for maybe. I think Halifax is in play for them. I'm not sure where you have them, but
Check.
but yeah, that's.
It's interesting.
I don't think Jagmeet Singh's going to be staying outside of Nova Scotia. I think he should stop on by to Halifax and have a vegetarian shawarma. He does not eat meat.
Halifax. Let's look at this.
No, it's the Denair.
Halifax, I have.
It's the Denair.
I
It's
have,
not a shawarma. It's a Denair. Sorry.
Halifax, I have a toss-up between Liberals and NDP.
Yeah.
So perhaps we'll have to bring some adjustments there.
Yeah. Maybe bump that one up a little bit, eh? So
The PCs are below 42%.
yeah. So now at 41.9 to 33.6.
I'm guessing 40 to 35 maybe it'll end up being. So
Yeah. I mean, there are still going to be those
a minority by
mail-ins and all
a
that.
minority by one would be something. It would be for the show because right now Liberals at 18, NDP at 9. That's 27, and the Independent is the tiebreaker.
Yeah. You know what though?
I love chaos.
Yeah. Well, let's say it ends up like this. How many elections has there been like that recently? Think about it. The BC election in 2017. It was more.
Right.
It was just one seat separating them. I think it was with the
Yep.
Greens. And
It
the
was
NDP.
two. It was two. Yeah.
Right.
42,
Yeah, but when you
41,
added the
yeah.
Greens, it
That's right.
did that. In Newfoundland in 2019, the Liberals won the exact amount of seats, and these independents held almost the balance of power. In New Brunswick in 2018, it was one seat separating the Liberals and the PCs.
Oh, what a mess that was. Yeah.
The result in PI
Absolutely.
was also kind of split. Was there any other weird ones recently? I think that's about it. But that's a lot of elections that are sort of the chaos scenario. I think Vishnu should come back onto the screen. She's clearly the smartest
Oh, the
person in the
joys of
room.
first past the post. The
Yeah.
joys of first past the post system.
Yeah. No, this is a fascinating result.
Hey, listen, Eric, I'm gonna have to call it the night. I apologize if it's earlier than you wanted, but I have a 16-hour day today, and I would like to thank everybody that participated in this. And again, thank you for the invitation. So tell those people to send their hostile comments to the posters and not to me or to yourself or to other forecasters out there. And I'm going to have a little tisane and then go to bed because another big day tomorrow. So
Yeah.
anyway, I'll be talking to you soon, Eric.
Yes, and thank you very much for coming on. And of course, you all know who's watching. You can go check out his site. It's 38canada.com. Don't look at the Nova Scotia one.
Yeah,
but,
it's no good. Yeah,
don't look at
don't
that
do
one.
/NS. It's no good. Go to the federal. The federal is I think it's pretty good.
All right. Well, I'm sure we'll chat again. Have a good rest of the campaign until we do.
Talk to you soon, Eric. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Take care.
So I'll stick around, I think, for a little while. Let's see. All right. Now I'm full screen again. All right. I can get some stuff on the screen here. Let's see. And I'll get your comments so I can look at them. I'll stick around with you guys for a little bit longer. Okay, sorry, Michael Strathmore. Okay, I'm now looking at the comments, okay? As you can see, I got the comments in front of me. You can see exactly what I'm seeing because all I can do is show you my screen. So the mail-in ballots. So you know what? I can't remember what the rules were about when they're going to count that. So I'm going to look it up right now. Nova Scotia mail-in ballots. I think they're write-ins, they call them in there. Write-in ballots. There weren't that many of them, though. There's only, I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference. What I remember seeing in some of the numbers from elections Nova Scotia about how many people had voted by these other ways, there weren't very many of them. So let me take a look at it. Let's see. They had a breakdown of it by riding, and there wasn't a big amount in a lot of these ridings. Here we go. Early voting statistics as of Saturday. Well, I'm not able to find it, what I'm looking for right now. But, yeah, I don't think it's going to be enough to make a big difference in these seats, even if there were mail-in ballots that have to be counted afterwards. I mean, the PCs are up by 27 to 16. Now, those votes are probably going to be good for the Liberals and the NDP, just if it's like what we've seen in other provincial elections, where it's the Saskatchewan and BC, where the mail-in ballots were predominantly, were disproportionately for Conservative parties, and the mail-in ballots were disproportionately for progressive, centrist parties, Liberals, New Democrats. Well, I guess it was just New Democrats, it was BC and Saskatchewan. But yeah, the BC Liberals did well in the in-person voting. The Saskatchewan Party did well in the in-person voting. So you would presume that it's going to be the same thing for the PCs in Nova Scotia. So maybe they are at a bit of a ceiling as more of those votes get counted. But it is still, I'm going to take these off. I don't need them anymore. It's going to still be hard for the PCs to lose at least the plurality. But the majority is starting to look a little bit more difficult for them. Let's see. If this was Louise Renz is asking about the Liberal Party's chances in the general, I mean, it doesn't help, and it does mean that Trudeau's going to have to be talking about whether calling an early election is a problem. You know, taking for granted that you can kind of win. What does it mean that Nova Scotians have rejected the Liberals that have been very closely tied to your government? He's going to have some awkward questions to answer for the next few days. I don't think a result here so surprising that it's going to shift federal politics in the way that the Alberta NDP's victory in 2015 really boosted Tom Mulcair's NDP into the lead in the polls going into that election campaign. A lot of people remember that Justin Trudeau started that campaign in third, but they forget that he started that year in first. It was the Alberta election that really kind of shifted things and gave the NDP a boost, and the Liberals really just had to work their way back to where they were before the campaign. I'm not sure if this is the kind of election that's going to have that impact, and it's going to be really galvanizing for the PCs, particularly when, as we mentioned earlier, Tim Houston was distancing himself from Aaron O'Toole. I'm sure Aaron O'Toole will be happy to have a new PC premier to try to be friendly with, but yeah, no, I think this, what can you say? It's going to be bad news for the Liberals, worse than if they had won. It's good news for the NDP because they seem to be overperforming in Halifax. And it's good news for the Conservatives because they have a party here that's winning seats. And I think that a lot of Conservative candidates in the rural parts of Nova Scotia are probably feeling a lot more confident today than they might have been afterwards. I'm just looking at your comments now. Is Ian Rankin likely done as Liberal leader? I don't know. I wonder. He hasn't been there for very long, right? So is he going to take this result and see it as a defeat and resign? I guess we'll have to wait and see. That is going to be something to watch. But yeah, if he sticks around, it's not going to be it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for him to stick around. I'm not sure if the Liberal Party would want to have another leadership campaign. Right? They just had one. They just finished one. But yeah, that'll be something to watch for sure. Dartmouth East is reporting like crazy. All right, let's take a look at Dartmouth East. Oh, lots of votes coming in. Okay, the PCs. This is, I guess, why they've moved back up to 28. Tim Hallman, still a very close race. Only 102 votes between the PCs and the Liberals. Now it's 149. There's a question there about vote splitting. That's not a bad argument from Jordan Chan, that maybe this will be something the Liberals will actually be able to use, that in a lot of these cases, you can make this simple back-of-the-napkin calculation that NDP votes plus Liberal votes would have defeated a PC candidate. So yeah, maybe that is it is going to be a bit of a calculation that the Liberals can try to make. While the PCs in Nova Scotia might be more centrist than the federal Conservatives, most Canadians wouldn't know that difference, right? But if you just look at this map, it is very dark blue in the rural parts. Look at Cape Breton. Very good for the PCs, though the Sydney area has gone for the Liberals and the NDP. This is really an urban-rural split. If you look at Halifax, let's zoom in on Halifax. Yeah, look at that. The PCs are winning these seats here: Eastern Passage, Dartmouth East, Waverley, Fall River, Beaver Bank. They're ahead. Sackville, Uniacke, but yeah, this is largely a rural-urban divide. Although for the federal Conservatives, this is kind of the equation that gets them a government: winning the rural areas and then winning some suburban areas, just enough to get them to that majority mark. So that's really what the federal Conservatives would like to do. So they can look at what Tim Houston has done here. And it is remarkable that they've been able to turn this around so much. As we were talking about earlier, the Liberals were ahead by 20 to 30 points earlier in the year. And it didn't matter once the campaign rolled around. So it does kind of show that pandemic polling surges are not always going to be sustained in an election campaign, especially if you're not giving people a very strong reason about why a government has to be reelected. I'd say there's lots of lessons, lots of warnings for Justin Trudeau in these results. 28 for the PCs, 16 for the Liberals, 10 for the New Democrats. Popular vote. So 41 for the PCs, 34 for the Liberals. So it's down to a 7-point gap. Sorry, my cat is maybe making a return. Yeah, this is it is a big surprise. I have to say that I was expecting that it would be closer than the polls had been suggesting earlier on. I did not expect that the PCs would win and maybe win a majority. So that is a big shift. Down 14 seats for the Liberals, a gain of 10 for the PCs, down 3 or up 3 for the New Democrats. Big result for them. And their popular vote's probably going to tick up as more of the Halifax ridings get reported. Yeah, CS Islander 2. Do you think Tim Houston trying to make clear the PCs are not the federal CPC during the campaign will make it difficult for O'Toole to make this a big win federally? I mean, it doesn't make it easier. If O'Toole had campaigned with Houston, then that would be a different thing, but that's not what happened. And there's not going to be much of an incentive for Houston to cozy up to O'Toole unless he believes that Trudeau won't be the prime minister after this election. The incentive will still be to kind of stay out of the fray. I mean, these will be his first weeks as, premier-elect, and he probably wants to step lightly, but we'll see. Would you say Tim Houston is closer ideologically to Dennis King than, say, Doug Ford or Blaine Higgs? Well, certainly to Doug Ford. That's, yeah. I mean, the PCs ran a pretty centrist campaign. So, yeah, he's definitely closer to Dennis King than he is to Doug Ford. Whether he's closer to Blaine Higgs or Dennis King, that I'm not sure about. Dennis King does seem to be the most centrist PC premier. I mean, Houston did run on that far more than Blaine Higgs did, right? Blaine Higgs had to worry about the People's Alliance, a populist right-wing party in New Brunswick. So he couldn't run too far to the center. He'd lose too many of those votes to the People's Alliance. So Tim Houston didn't have that problem. He was trying to get some of those voters who are probably still going to vote for the federal Liberals in this campaign, right? There's probably a lot of Nova Scotians who are centrist Nova Scotians, red Tories, see themselves in the Progressive Conservative Party of Nova Scotia, but do not see themselves in the Conservative Party of Canada. So, I don't think that because of this result, we should expect that the O'Toole Conservatives will get 40% of the vote in Nova Scotia. I do not think that is what this means. But it does, I think, serve as a warning to Justin Trudeau, because this is going to be the first incumbent government defeated in a pandemic election. Blaine Higgs was reelected. He was given a majority from a minority. Scott Moe was reelected with another majority government. John Horgan turned a minority into a majority. Andrew Furey turned a minority into a majority. Sandy Silver in Yukon was reelected, though he didn't really win that election. He tied the Yukon Party, the Conservative Yukon Party, in seats, but the Yukon Party won the popular vote. But still, Sandy Silver is still the premier in Yukon. And now Ian Rankin, first pandemic premier to be defeated. It was going to happen eventually, and it's, that's what is happening here. So Justin Trudeau has to wonder, maybe incumbency in the pandemic is not enough, not that they think it is, but that it's not something that they can take really for granted, that incumbents have been reelected. So, I will be reelected too. So this is really a shot across the bow, I think, for the federal Liberals. It's a good thing for them. This isn't happening in week 4 of the campaign. They have some time to readjust. I'm going to go back to your comments here. Yes, Michael Strathmore, campaigns matter. Once again, proven that it is true. Bill Dodery is now saying PC majority. Well, you heard it here first, but they are at 28. And they've gone ahead and enhanced east, have they? Let's see. Where are the PCs ahead? And where are they trailing by? Bedford South, still just 2 votes. And that's not currently in the PC column. So that could flip over. And, but again, with those, that is close. It'll be harder, I think, for the PCs to win some of the seats that they're behind than it will be for them to hold on to the seats they're already ahead of, just because if it is some of these advance and mail-in ballots. Where else do we got? They're only behind by 4 votes in Clare. If they're able to flip that, there's still 3 polls to report. Boy, that's close. 4 votes. 1,132 for Ronnie LeBlanc and 1,128 for Carl DeVoe. That is very close. And that's one that could flip over to the PCs, gets them up to 29. Where else do we got some thin margins? Sackville-Cobequid, they're behind by 21, and they're the incumbent. They got some options. If some of these seats don't work out, they're behind by 68 in Yarmouth. That might be harder to overcome. That's a traditionally Liberal seat, and there's not that many polls left to count. But yeah, they've got some options to move up. So, you might want to take their over rather than their under at this stage. I'm not surprised PCs aren't making many gains in the Halifax area. Conservative parties just don't really do that well in urban areas. In the last election, they had only 27% of the vote in the Halifax regional municipality. It would have had even less in the Halifax city center. So I'm not surprised they've had more difficulty breaking through. But, they do have a few strong results here, looking into Halifax. Sorry if my cat keeps meowing. She doesn't know what I'm doing. Eastern Passage, that's a seat, but that is one that they already had. Dartmouth East, again, one that they already had. Now she's clawing at my feet. Waverley Fall River, that is also another one they had. So they're not really picking up anything in the Halifax area. And they might lose Sackville-Cobequid. So, yeah, this isn't a great result for them in the Halifax area. So, again, you got to credit their gains in rural Nova Scotia, often in seats that, as Philippe was mentioning, are safe Liberal seats, or at least they would have been thought to be safe Liberal seats. And we're seeing that the PCs were able to topple some Liberal incumbents and in other cases win where there wasn't an incumbent. But yeah, they really just ran up the numbers in these rural areas, or at least where they needed to. Let's look at this. Look at this. It's entirely this whole area, Cumberland, Colchester. Then you got the shore here. That's all PC Blue, the Southwest, PC Blue. They're just getting the votes where they need to. And then Cape Breton was seen as a... Did I lose you guys for a second? Am I back? Anyway, let me know. Okay, we're back. I'm going to figure this out better next time. Not very satisfied with how I set this up. I'm using a program here that I'm using this is the second time I've used it, and I did not know how to connect it to Zoom so that I could have the map over in one corner and everything. So yeah, this is what happens when you're on your own. All right. Well, I was rambling at that point, so let's see. Where were you guys? What are you guys talking about now? Well, this is an interesting one from Matthew Arnott. Would more frequent polling during the campaign have significantly shifted Ian Rankin's strategy during the campaign? My guess is that the Liberals knew what was going on because they would have done their own polling. They wouldn't have been relying on the public polls like the rest of us have to. So they probably knew that things weren't going very good. But I don't really keep tabs on what the internal polls are looking like, but I didn't hear many whispers that the PCs are on track for a majority. So I wouldn't be surprised if Rankin and the Liberals are a little surprised as well today. Yeah, Philip Charbonneau, these results might give hope for West Nova staying with the CPC. Yeah. I think that is true. How soon from now will Mr. Houston take office? Usually it's a couple weeks. It's usually a couple weeks when there's a shift in power. So I would assume that he should be premier by the end of August, beginning of September. Mike in Halifax has an editorial. Halifax loves identifying as NDP, though we pay little attention to their policies. Okay. This is a good point by Matthew Kavanas Adley. Booting Smith McCrossin from caucus was the smartest thing Houston did to show he's a centrist. He really did that. He hesitated at first, right? But then he did it, and then she was gone. He might have lost that seat for the PCs, but he probably gained a couple more to make up the difference. What's the average population for a riding in Nova Scotia? It would be somewhere around 20,000. Again, using my humanities calculator. There's 55 ridings. There's about 1 million people. There's a little bit under 1 million people in Nova Scotia. So yeah, that would put it at somewhere under 20,000. In terms of eligible voters, though, that doesn't include children and stuff. So eligible voters, you're probably talking about 12, 15,000 per riding. So not much. Yeah, Bill Casey not doing well. Yeah, not even that he's not doing well. He's doing badly. Look at this, 29%. Former MP who was able to win as an independent with huge margins back in 2008. Only managing 29% of the vote here. Elizabeth Smith McCrossin, 53% for an independent. That's incredible. Kudos to her for managing to pull that off, because that is not easy. Eric, whose implosion was worse tonight, the Nova Scotia Liberals or the Toronto Blue Jays? I don't follow baseball. But I'm going to say the Blue Jays. Let's see what else we got here. I need a restreamer. Okay, thank you. Since you don't know what you're talking about, I don't really know what it is. One crash in 2 hours isn't bad. That's not too bad. Marc-André Leblanc. Est-ce qu'il est habituel qu'un premier ministre non élu, nommé chef par son parti pour remplacer le premier ministre sortant, ait de la difficulté à remporter leur campagne? I'm not sure if I understand the question. Okay, right, yeah. I wrote something on that recently, that premiers who come in and then have to face the electorate for the first time, they don't have as good of a record as incumbents. So that's kind of it. Yeah. Camille Thériault était le premier ministre du Nouveau-Brunswick qui a perdu face à Bernard Lord. Oui, c'est difficile d'être un nouveau premier ministre sans mandat électoral, mais si un parti est assez fort, comme Scott Moe en Saskatchewan, c'est assez difficile, mais des fois, c'est à cause du fait que le parti n'est pas dans une position d'être réélu qu'il y a un changement. Donc, c'est difficile, ça dépend le cas. Will McDonald says, so will the NDP be happy that they defeated a number of Liberals directly and indirectly, led to many other defeats, like in the enhanced seats area, helped to bring in a PC government? What's the dynamic? My anecdotal experience with New Democrats is that, they're very happy to defeat Liberals. They're not very happy to see Conservatives elected, but it's not really their... it's not. They don't think that their votes belong to the Liberals, right? So I don't think the NDP is going to look at this as anything but a good result. And the fact that the PCs won, they're going to say, well, Ian Rankin didn't run a good enough campaign. So, Colin talks about the NDP's performance. Yeah, they did do pretty much as well as they should have. Let's see where they are in the popular vote. 41.1% for the PCs, 33.8% for the Liberals, 21.4% for the NDP. Yeah, that's pretty much where the polls had them. So yeah, the NDP is hitting their mark, but their vote is being is quite efficient because they're winning 10 seats with that, right? Their vote came out in Halifax, it came out in Cape Breton. Benjamin Stonier. Bill Casey used to be my MP when I was coming of age. He's an institution in that region. Seeing him lose is very odd. Yeah, well, eventually, I guess their time runs out politically, right? Patrick Quinn, did you see the recent ECOS poll for the federal campaign? 10% for PPC in BC and 19% for NDP in Quebec. Anomaly? Yeah, probably. I mean, it is, if I understand correctly what ECOS is doing, it's a 3-day rolling poll of 250 people, which is, for tracking over a course of a campaign, that's fine. But 750 people in BC is going to be a sample of, I don't know what it was, but it was probably a sample of, like 70 decided voters. So the fact that you get 10% for the PPC there is not surprising. Or the NDP had 19% in Quebec. I also saw the Greens were doing quite well in Quebec as well, I think. I would say that's probably not where things actually are. One Liberal game, which riding was it? Let's see. Yeah, the Liberals, it's Northside Westmount, I believe, in Cape Breton. Yeah, there we go. That's an interesting one. So Fred Tilley, 47% defeats Murray Ryan for 36%. Pretty much all the votes are counted, 43 of 44 polls. And that's a flip. That's a flip for the Liberals. So I guess they did have the chance to gain some seats in Cape Breton, but they needed to do better everywhere else if they're going to win the election. 29 seats, yep, 29 seats for the PCs. They can name a speaker. They can hold on to that. Let's see where they are ahead. Chester St. Margaret's ahead by just 33 votes. They got some decent leads in all the other ones. They're only behind by 21 in Sackville-Cobequid still. Not sure if they're going to lose that majority. Not sure if that majority is going to get lost. They might just squeak by. What a result. Like, honestly, very surprising. Very surprising that the PCs are doing just as well as they are. You usually have some indication that a party is going to have this kind of breakthrough. Like I said before, if they had just won a minority, that would have been something. But to win a majority government with this is quite surprising. 41% now to 34%. So the gap is holding at about 7 points. We'll see how much longer that's going to hold off. Which election that you covered or analyzed did you had the least confidence in the overall outcome? You know what's funny? Which one it was? Well, it's probably not true, but the 2015 Alberta election, we had been so badly burned by what happened in 2012 and what had happened in 2013 in BC that when the NDP was leading in the polls in Alberta, it was really hard to believe it. And even though at the time my C projection had them 20 points ahead, easily a majority territory, any other campaign, any other election, I would have said, take it to the bank, NDP is going to win a majority government. I remember still feeling like, I don't know, this must be wrong, right? So, yeah, I remember that being an interesting campaign. But there's been a lot of other ones where, in the Quebec campaign in 2018, the polls were pretty close between the CAQ and the Liberals. The Liberals had a tendency, not in every election, but in a lot of elections, to overperform their polls. So were the Liberals going to pull off a surprise again? In the end, the CAQ did, and they won by a big majority. That was one that was a bit uncertain going into it. I always feel pretty uncertain. I'll say that. I never feel like I know what's going to happen in an election campaign. And that's proven to be truer than I wish it was. Let's see what else we got. If Elizabeth Smith McCrossan has a balance of power, she's the winner. Well, she is going to be the independent MLA for Cumberland North for the next 4 years, it looks like it could be. The PCs hold on to that. Bill Casey gets a call from Justin Trudeau to cheer him up soon, a la Ralph Goodale. Yeah, who knows? Maybe. So yeah. How many votes we got counted left? What do we got left to go? What's the questions here? So, Liberals in Annapolis still hasn't been called. My cat has some thoughts. The NDP in Cape Breton Center, Whitney Pier. Chester St. Margaret's still close. Clare is still close. She would like to be fed. Yeah, this is quite an outcome. Quite an outcome. And Tim Houston, I think, is going to become somewhat of a little bit of a folk hero for the fact that he can pull off such an unexpected result against to be the first person who defeats an incumbent premier after the pandemic. It's the kind of result that I think people are going to remember. I think I'm going to call it there. I think we've got pretty good indication what's going to happen here. Whether the PCs are going to end up at 27, 28, 29 seats, maybe even jump up to 30. That's really where it's coming down to. So let's kind of sum it up here. So the PCs right now, elected in 20, leading in 9. Their popular vote right now is 41%, probably going to keep going down, but they beat their polls by a decent amount, and they can look to rural Nova Scotia for giving them this government and really knocking off some Liberals in some pretty safe seats. They seemed safe. The Liberals, 15 seats, not a good result for them. The last time they were this low, you have to go back to 2009. They had 11 seats. And for the PCs, this is one of their biggest wins since John Hamm back in the 1990s. 34% of the vote for the Liberals will probably go up a little bit, so they're going to underperform their polls, it looks like, and they just got pushed out of rural Nova Scotia, and the NDP squeezed them in Halifax. The NDP's at 21%. Right now they're at 10 seats. That's their best result since Darrell Dexter won back in 2009. Overperformed in Halifax and in Cape Breton. They were able to win their seats there. So good result for the NDP. And Elizabeth Smith McCrossan, independent MP or MLA now for Cumberland North. A bit of a personal victory there. And what kind of impact is this going to have in the federal election? The Liberals are going to have to step lightly, maybe increase their energy a little bit so that they don't look like they're coasting. And the Conservatives can take maybe a moral victory out of this, that maybe, you can upset what the pollsters are showing and really surprise people. PC's just jumped up to 30 at the cost of the NDP, so the NDP dropping down to 9. And for the Democrats, gives them a lot of hope, I would say, to maybe pick off a seat in Halifax. So, Tim Houston, going to be the next Premier of Nova Scotia. Could be a majority government for him, going to be close. A big win for the PCs, a big disappointment for the Liberals. And for me, this was a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll do it again. So, bye everybody.